Affairs presentation. Opinions expressed by some of our guests may not reflect the views of K-Love, and some topics aren't suitable for children. K-Love is committed to community. Closer Look continues now with a look at local agencies, events, and issues.
Welcome to Closer Look. I'm Kendra Ponzio, and our guest today is Nikki Sanger, founder and president of MEC Disabilities, and we're going to be talking about adaptive services for kids. Welcome, Nikki.
Hi, thank you for having me, Kendra.
We'll talk about all the services that you provide in just a few minutes, but can you give us an overview of how MEC Disabilities got started in the first place and what it stands for?
MEC Disabilities, the MEC stands for Motivate, Elevate, and Celebrate. So that's our mission, is to motivate, elevate, and celebrate disabilities, especially for children. It kind of all started when COVID hit. My daughter has cerebral palsy and she's almost 5. It pretty much makes it to where she can't walk or stand independently. She has to have a walker. And so it's really hard to get on and off of playground equipment and get into places and get equipment in general. So we decided as a family that something needed to be done because there just isn't enough resources and enough programs. And a lot of insurance companies aren't covering equipment like they used to. For example, a wheelchair, most insurance companies, you can only get one every 3 years. So a lot of children grow out of their wheelchairs before that time period, and then families have to put the money out of pocket to get them a new one.
So you have a daughter with disabilities. Is that the underlying reason that you were able to really see this and start this organization?
Yeah, I think it's something that you don't see unless you're involved or you have a close connection with, because a lot of people don't really see the lack of entrances and things that they're able to do, just because people don't really see what works and what doesn't unless you're actually in it. And we just heard honestly from a lot of families that we're close to that have children with disabilities that there wasn't anything for them to do during COVID when everything was shut down. And then they were having problems that were ongoing about getting equipment and adaptive tools for their children. And for a lot of families that have children with disabilities, one or both parents can't work because you can't get care for them. And so even a $40 piece of equipment or a $25 onesie that has the pocket opening for if they have tube feeding or have a stent put in, it even just a little bit helps for a lot of these families that have children with disabilities. So it was kind of our mission to help families like ours that don't have a lot of help. We just make it through my husband's income. And so we wanted to really help families that could use the help and need the help, even if it was a $25 piece of equipment or a $5,000 piece of equipment. It's just very impactful when you see families that you're close to and they can't get something because of cost or insurance denial. And it could make it to where they can play with their peers or they can dress same or just any little thing that could make it more of an inclusive environment to make them feel like they belong was really our focus on getting this started, because just some little piece of adaptive equipment could make or break a child's childhood. There's adaptive bikes that kids can ride with physical disabilities and cognitive disabilities, and it's just ways that people need to go around, and they fight with insurance companies to help cover or even help cover any cost associated with it for them to be able to play with their peers or learn skills that other kids can learn a little bit easier.
Do you advocate for them? I mean, do you actually deal with insurance companies for them, or do you just try to come up with a separate solution?
We've had a couple of insurance companies that we've worked together with that we either help them with their deductible if it's covered besides their deductible. We've helped with that, or we've kind of came in and just said, hey, you're not approving it because it hasn't been the right amount of years. So the time restraint that a lot of insurance companies put on certain pieces of equipment, we can work with them, and if they could even approve part of it, we'll help cover the rest. A lot of people have high deductibles on their insurance. So it makes it to where we can help cover their deductible if their insurance will cover it. And there's a lot of insurance companies who don't cover adaptive equipment at all or adaptive tools, such as eating utensils, boards that help the children that aren't verbal. A lot of insurance companies don't help with that until they're a little bit older. It's kind of all over the board with what we can help with and what insurance companies are willing to do to work with families and with us, because if we can work with the insurance companies, it makes it a little bit easier for the families. But we do advocate for the families with the insurance companies if they've gotten denial letters for something that is a necessity, because some adaptive equipment, isn't considered necessarily a necessity, such as like an adaptive bike, an adaptive stroller, things like that. Especially for children that have physical disabilities, a lot of school districts and schools in general want them to have a wheelchair on hand, even if they don't use a wheelchair normally. Just things like that it's kind of hard if insurance doesn't cover or they need it for a specific purpose. So we definitely advocate for the families to try to get their insurance to cover it, and if they can't, then we help get the funding for that to be covered.
If you're just joining us, you're listening to Closer Look. I'm Kendra Ponzio, and our guest today is Nikki Sanger, founder and president of MEC Disabilities, and we're talking about adaptive services for kids. You mentioned that sometimes one of the parents has to stay home, so basically it cuts their income in half, and that's a shame that has to happen to be able to take care of these kids. I mean, it just seems like there should be more programs available to help.
Yes, definitely. There are some programs if you get approved on your income level, but a lot of the programs are more for cognitive disabilities, not so much so for physical disabilities. If there are families that get approved, sometimes they get approved for hours and they'll just work and make money that way with their child. But most of the time, if they don't have a cognitive disability or they're not severe enough, they won't qualify for assistance or hours to be helped so that the other parent can work. I know just from our personal experiences at income level, we don't qualify for her to be on Social Security, and that's the only way for her to be able to get hours because she's not cognitively delayed. But because she's physically disabled, they have it ranked on a severity level, and hers is considered mild, even though she can't walk or stand independently. We've done a lot of renovations to her home just for her to be able to go to the bathroom by herself and to be able to try to take a bath and things like that they don't necessarily cover, and we don't, get the help for because hers isn't severe to where she's wheelchair bound and she's unable to do anything by herself. For example, her case is mild cerebral palsy, and it's just her lower limbs that are affected. With that, there's a lot of just back and forth on trying to fight the system pretty much on getting help when there's so many families out there that if you could get hours for a child, or if there's care facilities for children, which there are in some states, and daycare facilities in some schools, that there are places that they can go to. But for my daughter, even finding a kindergarten or something that she can go to has been really difficult, just because they don't have an aide that can help her go to and from the bathroom or get her inside and back outside.
It's amazing to hear all of this because we think we're living in an adaptive world. I mean, we see sidewalks being torn up and restructured for wheelchairs. We see so many requirements for businesses to be able to have wheelchair accessible aisles and things like that. So it's astonishing to hear that this isn't happening everywhere and in every arena.
Yeah, and it's pretty amazing. So during COVID, this is because that's where I was kind of got this started. We would take her to playgrounds at schools and public playgrounds. And a lot of the playgrounds that are popping up that are considered all-inclusive or inclusive playgrounds, they're putting in bark chips still, they're putting in the rubber little pellet things. And that's not accessible for somebody that's in a wheelchair. It's not accessible for somebody who's in a walker, who has crutches or canes. And my daughter's face planted at public playgrounds and at school playgrounds, just going through the bark chips. And then there's some that have the all-access ground cover. You see a lot of that in Texas and Florida, where it's more of a rubber feel on the ground. And honestly, the ADA Act was established in July of 1990, and they came into effect in 1981, but Their last revision was in 2010. And that's one of the areas that we're trying to get is the ADA Act tabled to get it revised because it doesn't have necessary things for children.
If you're just joining us, you're listening to Closer Look. I'm Kendra Ponzio, and our guest today is Nikki Sanger, founder and president of MEC Disabilities, and we're talking about adaptive services for kids. Nikki, tell us about the services that you do provide. I mean, what types of apparatuses are you helping these families with? You mentioned something as simple as $25 can make a huge change in a child's life. Tell us about some of those things.
So right now, we currently cover anything that is considered adaptive or adaptive equipment for children and people with disabilities 21 years and younger. We do have an application process online where people can fill out the form and upload insurance denial letters or PT or OT or doctor request letters and need for necessity. But we have done anywhere from a onesie that has the pocket for stent and tube feeding, which is between $25 and $35 a piece. And then we've done feeding utensils for children with disabilities that range anywhere from $25 to $60 to $70. And then we've done adaptive trikes, which depending on what their necessity is, it ranges from between $500 and a couple $1,000s. We've also done a couple of car seats, and we do anything that pretty much can make a child's life more inclusive and like a sense of belonging. That's our main goal, is just bringing inclusion to the kids. Because as long as they feel like they belong and they can do things just like the other kids, it really does make a world of a difference. We have done a couple of money readers for children that are blind or hard of seeing. It's small and it just slides over the money and it'll read out loud what the amount of the money is, because in the US dollar, our currency isn't tactile like other currency is.
Interesting. So that helps them be a little more independent and being able to pay for things on their own.
Yeah, and so that's been like really big. We've helped a couple of schools get them just for their middle schoolers to get used to using. And then we've had a couple of families request them from using it through their programs, just because they're able to go into the store and pay. And it's not, they can just use a debit card or a credit card or pay with Apple Pay or something like that. It's more so just that they can have the independence of being able to use something that everyone else can use.
Where does all the equipment come from? I mean, it sounds like you've got a lot of different things that you provide for people. Where does it all come from?
So right now we get funded privately, and we're working on getting a few grants for equipment this year. And then we go through the different companies that supply the equipment, because for adaptive equipment for pediatrics, there's not a whole lot out there, and they're kind of all intertwined. But there's like a couple things that we go like directly to the source, like the freeloader backpack carrier that goes all the way up to like teenage and adult. Just things like that that we can go directly to a company and get directly from them, or we get from a third-party dealer like a New Motion, for example, or a medical equipment facility that can get it for us.
Tell us about the kids that you serve. Who are they?
Honestly, we've had such a wide range of children that we've helped. The oldest child that we've helped, it was 19, and he has Down syndrome and a couple of other things that he has. I want to say we have about 20 kids with cerebral palsy. About 3/4 of them are nonverbal or they're wheelchair bound. We've had a couple of people that have gotten equipment for their children that are autistic. Those are mostly just sensory items that they need for school and for calming down. It's just such a wide range.
Do you partner with other schools or organizations? I mean, obviously you do with other organizations trying to get the equipment. So you do partner with other organizations as well?
Yeah, we partner with other organizations, especially with getting our name out there and what we do and how we can help. Just because we are a newer nonprofit, we are out of a small town in Grants Pass, Oregon, but we do help children nationwide. So it's been kind of a great network of communities that we've came to know, and that we're working together with helping get these children equipment that they need. Our big one that we work alongside is with Medbridge Children's Therapy. If there's equipment that a child needs, either occupationally, physical therapy, or even for speech. We work really well with their team over there, and we go back and forth between PTs and OTs on different things that they are needed, if they've gotten denial letters or that isn't covered. So we work really well with them on getting like the right measurements for certain pieces of equipment and kind of knowing the families ahead of time, which is really nice, because if there's something else that they need or if there's something that can be tweaked or changed, it's kind of easier to go about it when you have like a team of people that can work with you on getting them exactly what they need, so they're not losing out on one aspect and gaining on another.
Is there a way to recycle the equipment? Like you said, wheelchair, you can only get one every 3 years. Well, if you're 10, 11, 12 months old, you're going to outgrow it by the time you're 3 years old. So is there a way to repurpose those pieces of equipment to families that can use them?
Yeah, so currently we're just doing that in our area, and we go out all the way from Eugene to Klamath Falls, Ashland. We've done some in Wairika, but we do get them certified, so they get looked over by somebody that does medical equipment, like I guess rehabilitation of medical equipment, and we make sure it's sound and good enough to go to a family, especially if it's just for like a little bit until they get the equipment that they need. But we mostly focus on getting children new equipment. But if there is a wait process, we do have some loaner equipment. And then we do work alongside early childhood services and Medford Children's Therapy on getting equipment loaned out to families that are in need of it and we can't get it in time, or certain things like that. Because some equipment, we're still waiting. There's wait periods of like 4 to 6 months, and then other equipment, it's a couple weeks. So just a wide range of how long it takes to get certain pieces of equipment. The loaner equipment that we have has been such a great help for a lot of families.
Would you encourage donations of that sort if someone has something that they're not using any longer?
Yeah, definitely. As long as it's like in good condition and able to be used. Yes, definitely, of course. And then we do go all the way up to the age of 21 that we help. So it's really anything that is medically sound that we can take, just obviously not like certain things like bedding and equipment like that we can't take, but wheelchairs, walkers, canes, standers, things like that, things that don't have a high risk of something being wrong with it.
Obviously, that part of what you do is in your neighborhood, but you mentioned that you cover kids all across the nation?
Yeah, we get adaptive equipment for kids across the U.S., and we had something to kind of get the word out this last October. So we're going to continue doing it annually every October, where children that would like either a dress-up outfit or a costume, they can apply for this adaptive costume that goes on adaptive strollers, wheelchairs, walkers. It's just one of the ones from Target. So Target and Medford actually helped sponsor this year for some of the costumes we got, and then an automotive shop, Specialized Automotive out of Medford, they helped us with the rest. And this last October, we sent out 14 different adaptive costumes to 10 different states, which was really amazing. And we're hoping to be able to cover at least 50 this year because we had over 300 applicants for the one this past October, which we just selected at random. My daughter, Evelyn, who's almost 5 with cerebral palsy, she's actually the one who picked the names from the jars, and we did it live on TikTok, getting all the names pulled for each of the costumes that we had, and then we sent them off in the middle of October.
That sounds like fun. I've seen wheelchairs and strollers with lights on them and things like that. It always makes me smile. Nikki, is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up?
Anyone who would like to be involved or know about upcoming events, if you would like to go to our website at MECDisabilities.org, it will have a list of events and things that we are doing under our events tab on our website, as well as if you want to volunteer, there's also a volunteer tab as well.
Give us your contact information. If anyone wants to talk to you about anything we've spoken about today, what would be the best way to go about doing that?
If they could go to MECDisabilities.org, that's Motivate, Elevate, Celebrate, disabilities.org. They can reach us on our contact page, and that's the fastest way to contact us.
Thanks to our guest, founder and president, Nikki Sanger. For more information on MEC Disabilities, email us at closerlook@klove.com. That's closerlook@klove.com. For Closer Look, I'm Kendra Ponzio.